The spear is still lodged in its side. The animal is bleeding, thrashing, and still very much capable of killing the man standing in front of it. He's 19, maybe 20. The rest of the hunting party is holding back. He isn't. And if that sounds familiar, a car, a dare, a fight that didn't need to happen, it should. It's never the 50-year-olds doing this. It's never the mothers. It's almost always young men. That was true 60,000 years ago. It's still true today. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why that gap never closed and why it might be impossible to close. In 1985, psychologists Margo and Martin Daly published a paper that gave this pattern a name, the young male syndrome. Looking across cultures, historical records, and crime statistics, they found something remarkably consistent. Young adult men, roughly aged 15 to 25, were responsible for a wildly disproportionate share of risky, competitive, and violent behavior in virtually every society they examined. Not slightly more, dramatically more. Wilson and Daly weren't just describing behavior. They were pointing at something underneath it. Young men, historically, had the most to gain from risk and the least to lose. No dependence yet. No status yet. Everything still to prove. That paper was about modern humans. But the pattern it describes doesn't look modern at all. It looks ancient. And the deeper you dig into the archaeological record, the more it looks like something our species has been doing since long before anyone wrote anything down. Here's where it gets physical. In 1995, paleoanthropologists Thomas Berger and Erik Trinkaus examined the injury patterns preserved in Neanderthal skeletons and noticed something strange. A huge concentration of trauma to the head and upper body, and comparatively little to the legs. When they compared this distribution to modern clinical injury data, only one group of people showed a similar pattern: rodeo riders. People who get thrown, gored, and stepped on by large animals at close range, over and over, for a living. Cavemen and rodeo riders. Same injuries. Now, in fairness, science corrected itself here, and that correction matters. Years later, Trinkaus revisited the data and found that early modern humans living alongside Neanderthals showed similar injury patterns too, which meant the trauma probably wasn't unique to Neanderthal hunting style. He suggested the original rodeo rider explanation needed to be qualified, maybe even partly retracted. Science corrects itself. That's the point. Some of that trauma may have come from close-range hunting. Some may have come from violence between individuals or groups. The honest answer is, we don't know the exact split, but the age and sex behind those injuries stayed consistent, no matter which explanation you believe. Young adult males, engaging in exactly the kind of close, high-stakes physical risk that separates the ones who survive from the ones who don't. And the archaeological record backs this up a second way, through prey choice. Older, more experienced hunters tended to favor safer, calculated approaches, coordinated drives, ambush positions, terrain that reduced individual exposure. Younger hunters didn't always play it that safe. There's a consistent pattern in weapon damage and skeletal injury, suggesting younger hunters were more likely to engage dangerous prey at closer range, in worse positions, past the point where the odds still clearly favor them. Would this actually show up in the bones? Yes. Injuries consistent with an animal that was wounded, cornered, and still very capable of killing the person standing over it.
And if you think this is purely an ancient problem, look at modern accident data. Across almost every country that tracks this, men aged 15 to 25 die from accidents, risk-taking, and interpersonal violence at several times the rate of any other age group, including older men. Different tools, different dangers, same age bracket, tens of thousands of years apart.
So why would evolution build a species where the most cognitively capable members of a specific age and sex group are also the ones most likely to get themselves killed? If you've made it this far, you already suspect where this is going. The answer isn't a design flaw. It's a mating and status strategy. And it isn't even unique to humans. Male red deer fight over mating access every rutting season, clashing antlers with rivals in contests that occasionally end in serious injury or death for one of the combatants. Biologists call this costly signaling, a demonstration so risky and expensive that only a genuinely strong, capable individual could survive doing it. which is exactly what makes it convincing to everyone watching. Now, put a young human male in that same logic. In a small hunter-gatherer group, status wasn't inherited. It was earned, mostly through demonstrated competence. Successful hunts, physical courage, the willingness to do the dangerous thing everyone else hesitated to do. Status meant better mates, more support from the group, more say in decisions. For a young man with no track record yet, no reputation yet, the fastest way to acquire it wasn't caution. It was a visible, undeniable display of exactly the kind of nerve older, already established men no longer needed to prove. It wasn't recklessness. It was a strategy, one that occasionally cost a young man his life, but that, if it paid off even a fraction of time, was worth it at the level of genes competing across generations. Here's what the psychology-only version of this story misses, though. Ancient groups weren't just passively watching this play out. Many cultures developed something specific to manage it. Structured rites of passage, controlled ordeals, supervised hunts, ritualized tests of endurance and pain. They show up across an enormous range of documented traditional societies, historically and anthropologically. Not ceremony for its own sake, a container, a way to channel exactly this energy somewhere survivable, instead of leaving it to find a wounded, cornered animal all on its own. The elders in these systems mattered enormously. An older hunter who had personally watched several capable young men die from unnecessary escalation was in a position to say, explicitly, this fight is not worth it. In a way, a 19-year-old with something to prove was never going to say to himself. Some groups build entire social structures around this. Apprenticeship periods, stage levels of hunting responsibility, communal decision-making before a raid, specifically to put a check on individual young men's incentive to go further than the group needed them to. This didn't eliminate the pattern. It's still there in the bones, but it had somewhere to go. That's the story, as far as the bones can tell it. But the pattern didn't stay buried with them. Wilson and Daly, remember, weren't writing about the Stone Age at all. They were writing about the 20th century, and they found the same signature waiting there. Young men, competing, risking, dying at rates no other group came close to. Colin Echo carried forward in the same wiring, running in a body that no longer needs it to hunt anything. Most of the structures that once gave that wiring somewhere controlled to go are gone now. There's rarely an elder whose entire social role is to personally intervene before a risky decision. There's rarely a formal, supervised rite that lets a young man prove himself in a survivable, contained way. Instead, the same drive gets expressed however it can. Reckless driving, extreme sports, gang violence, dangerous stunts performed for an audience that is, in an important sense, exactly the audience this mechanism evolved to impress. It isn't that modern young men are somehow more reckless than their ancestors. It's that the guardrails have mostly disappeared, while the underlying wiring hasn't changed even slightly. Before we close this out, we want to hear from you. Almost everyone has a moment like this, a time you close a distance you shouldn't have, because someone was watching. Tell us about it in the comments. We read every one. So go back to that 19-year-old, closing the distance on a wounded animal that could still very easily kill him, while the rest of the group watches from a safe distance. He wasn't failing to understand the risk. He understood it completely. What he was doing was exactly what Wilson and Daly's research would predict, exactly what shows up in the injury patterns preserved in ancient bones, exactly what a red deer does every autumn when it lowers its antlers at arrival, a young male with everything still to prove, making a bet his own group's social and biological reward system had quietly stacked in favor of taking. A number of them made it through, survived the bet, earned the status, became the older men who'd one day watch the next generation do the exact same thing. That's the outcome the pattern was built to eventually reward. But an outsized share never got there. Their injuries are still there in the bones. Head trauma, crushed ribs, the unmistakable marks of getting too close. One time too many. Young men who died at rates no other group in the population came close to, and never got the chance to grow old enough to warn anyone else. Generation after generation. That's the real cost underneath this entire story. Not the ones who made it to become the elders, the disproportionate number who didn't. The wounded animal, is mostly gone from the story now. The dare has changed shape completely. But somewhere tonight, a young man is going to do something objectively too risky, in front of people whose opinion matters to him more than his own safety does. And he won't fully understand why, any more than that hunter 60,000 years ago understood the evolutionary logic running underneath his own decision. He'll just feel like it's the only thing to do,